Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's special meeting of the Lebanon Plan Commission. We will go ahead and call ourselves to order, and we will note that all current members, with the exception of Mr. Jones, are present. He was unable to join us this evening. And that will move us then to the only item that we have on the agenda. This is an old business item that was forwarded to tonight's special meeting. This is docket 26-22, which is Braun Property Development, and Ben has some background for us.
Good evening, board members. I'll walk you through a little bit of the process that we're going to be going through tonight and then moving forward on this, and then give a real high-level overview of the project itself, allowing the applicant to get into further details on various elements of the project. What is before us here tonight is a plan unit development rezone request. And the reason or why our unified development ordinance sets up a process for plan unit developments is where you have oftentimes larger projects that have multiple product types where you really can't fit it just neatly in one zoning district box, and it requires you really to create an ordinance that establishes districts based on the uses that are proposed. So in this case, this is a project that includes both a little bit of neighborhood commercial and then also some higher density like multifamily residential and also single family residential. So while we could kind of fit it within one of our residential zoning districts, when you add the commercial retail component of it, we really don't have a district that matches that. So the other reason we wanted to go PUD is it gives you a little bit more flexibility on exactly what the boundaries are of each district. Whereas if you try to draw boundaries and just assign a zoning district to it, those are hard boundaries. So this allows some flexibility as this project moves forward and gets into the further design phases to really set up where those boundaries of each district are going to be based on the concept that we'll talk about tonight. So again, as a plan unit development, what it essentially does is it establishes a series of use sub-districts and the zoning and development standards that will be applicable to each one. It identifies an underlying zoning district, one of our residential or commercial zoning classifications, and then also write standards specific to that zoning district, and it's usually where they differ from our standard development standards associated with that district. So that's what I'll quickly walk through here tonight. One, I'll do a quick overview of where the site's located, talk really kind of at a high level. And again, I guess I'll start first before I get into that about the process. So plan unit development is a multiple step process just for the zoning, which is what we're hearing tonight. This is not a detailed review of design standards or site design or specific lot sizes. We're really at the really high 10,000 foot view of this project right now. And then it will drill down into more detail as it goes further into the design process. And those will actually also be public meetings that will come before the Plan Commission as well. So plan unit development's real high level zoning. What this does is that it sets up essentially a use map and an ordinance that regulates the site. This is the first step of that process before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission reviews the proposed uses, the proposed sub-districts, and the proposed standards associated with those sub-districts, and provides, as an advisory Plan Commission, provides advice or a recommendation to the Common Council. The Lebanon Common Council then would listen to that recommendation or take in consideration of that recommendation. And then that plan unit development rezone and ordinance would theoretically be adopted by the council. And it does take 2 meetings of the council to adopt an ordinance such as that. So the rezone and PUD ordinance is a 3-step process that starts here tonight. And then that essentially establishes the zoning for the property. That does not approve a project to start developing. That really just sets the table, the 10,000 foot view of the design standards for the site. And then the applicant can then go into further detail on the site. It's when they'd start getting into primary platting, where they're starting to figure out road layouts and lot sizes and use types, specific use types. And then also things like buffering and drainage and infrastructure and all those things. We get further into that detail and future steps of this process once we get through this initial PUD rezone and ordinance that establishes those high-level standards. And again, so that multiple step process before anything would actually begin happening out here, but this really sets those high-level standards. So quick overview, if they want to go ahead and pull the screen up here. I don't know why it's doing that. Well, That's great. IT knows why this isn't pulling this up.
Almost looks like it's pulling a second monitor. Well, we'll take a dramatic pause here.
Plugged in? Yeah, let's try just doing it again. See what. Computer for every meeting, and it's never done this before.
I think God's trying to tell you something.
We're going to go ahead and call for just a quick recess here while we get IT under control. We'll be back in just a moment for online. Our IT problem solved. We are right back to where we left off. Mr. Bontrager has our map pulled up here, and we will continue from there.
All right, thank you for your patience. All right, so quick overview here. This is an approximately 150, a little over 150 acre site. You see outlined here in yellow. County Road 300 North is to the south, you see running here, and State Road 39 is located along the west. It is adjacent both State Road 39 here in this location on County Road 300 in this location. There may be some additional annexations that's happened at the north end of this property would provide some additional adjacency, but that's something that would happen in a future step and a future phase. So again, as I mentioned, this is about 155 acres. And then I'll quickly walk through. This is a conceptual plan. This is not a civil design plan. An engineer hasn't looked at drainage calculations or anything like that. This is intended to be very highly conceptual at this phase as part of the PUD rezone process. This shows a general layout where there would be access off of both State Road 39 and on County Road 300 North. A series of residential product types, and I'll walk through here in a second, that are located kind of at the north and the east of the property. And then you've got this mixed use node that's contained right here on State Road 39 that has some neighborhood commercial uses proposed along State Road 39, along with a multifamily district. Centrally located here in the middle is a large park, an amenity area for the neighborhood. That's part of the development as well. So real quickly here, I'll walk through the various districts. So the first one is the Village District. This is a single family residential district designed for single-family detached dwellings, 1 and 2 story homes. It's approximately 100 acres as part of the overall. So it is about 2/3 of the overall development. It's the majority of the development that is the single family kind of traditional subdivision neighborhoods. The development standards associated with the village district primarily follow our UDO standards. There was only a couple minor things that they changed. One would actually be to reduce the allowable density, and the underlying zoning district is something that matches more what they're proposing here. And then a small change to one of the architectural requirements that's in our UDO that actually we've discovered since its writing is really kind of a challenging thing to meet, something we'll probably actually change. And one other thing that I know has come up, and I know that state law has changed how this can be done. We can't legislate this, but they have made sure that in areas that will be for sale products, but there's a restriction on the number of dwelling units that can be rented or owned by a third party for rental. So really wanting to make sure that this is restricted to for sale and homeowner occupied housing in this area. So that can't be legislated. We can't put it in an ordinance, but they will be committing to that. And they'll probably talk about it a little bit in the covenants and restrictions for the neighborhood. The second one then is the Towns District, which you see up here kind of in the northern part. This is something that's got a little bit more flexibility for different residential product types. It could be both single family detached, but it could also be attached product like townhomes or something like that, get a little bit more density. Could be duplexes. Really, they're just looking for the flexibility as the market dictates what that use should be, have ability to address that demand in the market with a product type that fits in this area. So this could be for sale product. It could be designed as a for rent product. They're not really sure yet. Again, this really the market's going to dictate some of this. And this would have the design standards and requirements to allow for the flexibility of that depending on how the market would do that. Now, I think if this was going to be a for sale product, you'd still see some of those same restrictions on it becoming a rental product unless it was designed as a for rent product. The third one is the Terrace Districts, kind of the yellow part in the middle here. And that would be more of the higher density multifamily apartment building type development, really centered around the parks and then also the Market District, which is the commercial retail area. Again, in all of these sub-districts, they are following our design standards of the Unified Development Ordinance. So really the reason for the PUD is really to set up these sub-districts, not necessarily to vary from our standards significantly. They're really intending to follow them. They just need the PUD to set up these districts. The last one then, as I mentioned, was the Market District, the neighborhood commercial that you see focused along State Road 39. Kind of going back here to this. The reason we looked at that is one, it's got the adjacency to State Road 39. It's also across State Road 39 from what will be a larger commercial node that's at the northwest corner. That's an already approved project that's going to have a large grocer. That's the anchor tenant for that. So really looking to try to provide similar uses across the road from each other, provide a little bit of a neighborhood, lower density commercial retail on the side of the road, kind of as a buffer before you get into the residential parts of the neighborhood. And then providing some of the lower density stuff as you get closer to some of the existing residential that's in this area. And then, as I mentioned, I won't go into it in a lot of detail, because I know the applicant will be doing that, but they do have a pretty significant park district that's part of this as well, that provides amenities for the neighborhood, pretty significant park district area. So just real quick then, decision criteria on a potential PUD rezone and ordinance such as this. The first one is the extent to which the proposal fulfills the requirements and intent of the comprehensive plan and any other applicable adopted planning studies or reports. Kind of walk through this, and of course I've highlighted in red, but you can't really see the details there. But this is the future land use map from the comprehensive plan that was just adopted a couple of years ago. This area on the comprehensive plan is shown as residential. What you can't see is at the corner, we contemplated there being mixed use at the intersection of 39 and 300. So that really plays right into what they're proposing with the neighborhood commercial retail node and then also the multifamily. That's really what's intended for that mixed use subdistrict. Again, you can't quite see it. There's pink that's right there at the intersection. I could go out of this presentation, zoom in a little bit, but there is both mixed use and residential that's proposed for this. So this Northgate development addresses and fulfills the future land use designations from the 2025 comprehensive plan update by providing a mix of retail, commercial, and residential land uses. The second is the current conditions and character of current structures and uses. The Northgate PUD is on the State Road 39 corridor at the north end of the developed area of the community that contains a mix of residential, commercial, and hospital uses. There are also new residential and commercial developments proposed and underway along the County Road 300 North corridor. This proposed development complements the existing and proposed uses within the State Road 39 and County Road 300 North corridors. The third is the most desirable use of which the land in each district is adopted. The Northgate PUD furthers the goals of the comprehensive plan and is complementary to the uses developed and proposed within the immediate vicinity. The proposal creates a desirable mix of land uses based on proximity to the Lebanon Street commercial corridor, Witham Hospital, and to other amenities and services. The next is the conservation of collective property values throughout the city of Lebanon as a whole. And it's not anticipated that the development proposed by the applicant will have a negative impact on property values throughout the city. The proposal will provide amenities and services that represent the highest quality of design and should have a positive impact on values. And the final thing is responsible growth and development. The subject site is a responsible extension of the uses developed and proposed along the Lebanon Street corridor and will be served by utilities extended from the intersection of State Road 39 and 300. And so that's just a quick summary of those decision criteria. With that staff conclusion and review of the submitted plan unit development rezone and ordinance as presented, staff finds compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance established design criteria and recommends the Plan Commission forward the Northgate Plan Unit Development Rezone and ordinance to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any general questions before I turn over to the applicant for further detail about the project.
I have a question for you, Ben. When you were describing those different districts, you mentioned in the Towns District that there is flexibility currently with how that's developed depending on what the market dictates, if I understand. At what point do they have to confirm what is going to be in there?
Yeah, I expect this project, because of its size, to be developed in phases over time. And so that they'll walk through that a little bit for you, at least what they're anticipating right now would be those phases. But before they would come back in and do the primary platting and some of those further development phases that come back before the Plan Commission, they would have to be making some decisions on the actual uses that proposed. They can't go into that detail in that primary platting and construction and documents phases without the uses known. So the next step, though, is when they'll really be nailing down some of those specific uses, how and where, and exact layouts.
Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's noted as basically a not to exceed 4 dwelling units per acre, basically, in those zones, right?
Yeah, each one of those. And again, I think the applicant's got a real good chart that shows you this, is it has a not to exceed density. So they couldn't just pack in and say, hey, we're just going to make this a big multifamily district, make it a much more dense. They couldn't do that with the way this is set up. It has caps on those densities in each one of those sub-districts.
Helpful. Thank you.
Ben, this has more to do with the traffic density. 300 North is still city at the moment. I mean, it's still county at the moment. Is that correct? At least on that side?
Yeah, you've got a series of homes along, you can kind of see here, that are not in the city. That's correct.
Okay, and one of their interests is on 300 North, at least
Yes.
proposed.
Yes, we are very aware that section of County Road 300 North is not adequate and will have to be, and it's probably an understatement to say it's not adequate. We've got a single lane bridge out there.
Drove it for 20 years, I know.
Yeah, so yes, we fully understand, but before they could make that connection on County Road 300 North, at least the segment from that entrance back to 39 needs to be considered for improvement. And what those are, a traffic study that's part of the primary platting phase would have to be done to determine how many lanes, what that intersection looks like, and all
at this point, the county would have to be the one that would.
The county, we would work with the county on what those improvements would look like. Yes.
And in dot. Other questions for Ben? With that, if the applicant would like to step to the microphone, give us a little bit of information.
Good evening. My name is Scott Noel with Braun Property Development. I'm joined by Adam Braun with Braun Property Development. Address is 1155 Parkway Drive in Zionsville, Indiana. Just wanted to, I'll relay the slides here. Here with this first slide, just wanted to make a quick introduction to who we are. This is our first project in the city of Lebanon. We're excited to be here. So I think it's important to give a little bit of context. Hopefully your screens can show the font a little bit better, but I'll try to highlight as many of these items as I can. But just a little bit about us. We are Boone County lifetime residents, so we've grown up and we're graduates of Zionsville High School. We've done a lot of our work predominantly in the Whitestown area. And so we've done a couple of our big specialties are kind of these larger tracts of land where we can do a more thoughtful, comprehensive, mixed use walkable design. So I've referenced a couple of them on there. That one on the top is on the north side, the east side of Whitestown, the downtown area. And that's got a mix of uses in there. So that's kind of representative of what we like to do rather than grab little sections and do housing clusters all over the place where there's not a cohesive design. We like to do some of these bigger planned developments. So these are in various stages, but we've done ones that are completely built out and completed. And then the bottom left picture there is what we call Beckman Park. That's on the north side of Whitestown where we're starting the first one. And then we've got kind of a mixed use component on the bottom right there called Martin Place that's in planning that we'll do. One other thing that's relevant about us is we own a home building company, Hallmark Homes. So out there on 65, we've had a presence in Lebanon for 25 plus years. And so we have a build on your lot. We build a lot of houses in Boone County, and then we build in subdivision settings. So that's just relevant. Part of why I mentioned that too is we fully expect our own home builder, Hallmark Homes, to be the predominant construction company home builder for this Northgate master development. So just the final bullet point there, we're committed to deep planning with our communities that we do projects in. We really want to be Boone County centric. We understand that there's a lot that goes into this, and we want to be good neighbors and do what's in the wishes of the cities and towns that we work with. But just want to the big part of that is to do these bigger communities that have a cohesive nature and meet the needs of where we do our projects. I'll kind of quickly go over this. I think a lot of this is well known by the group, which is obviously there's been a ton of investment into the area and there's been a ton of economic and job drivers. And so the Boone County EDC, Economic Development Committee, and the Lebanon Comprehensive Plan, all of these statistics are straight from those two resources. So we have a huge housing shortage and a huge housing demand need in the city of Lebanon. Anticipates needing over 1,000 to 1,200 units per year in order to fit that demand that's upcoming. So as you can see here, that quote from the recently adopted comprehensive plan, Lebanon needs a range of housing options such as condos, townhomes, duplexes, senior housing, executive level homes. That's straight from that comprehensive plan. So just that's the context for why we're here, obviously. Quick mention on timeline. We've been working with Ben and the planning staff and the various other relevant departments going back for really about 18 months. It's been a long time in the making. We held a neighbor meeting at the public library on March 25th. Had about 10 or so neighbors join us. Some of the common questions are just kind of related to timing, which I'll talk about here briefly later in the presentation. Understanding the phasing, anytime anyone sees the breadth of our development, obviously want to just be clear that this is a very long timeline to get this thing developed. And then there were just a lot of questions about specifics. We've got the different overlay districts, and so there were just specific product related questions that were in there. So again, Ben did a great job of giving the overview of Northgate, but Northgate's a total of 154 acres. We've got the 5 overlay districts, which I'll go through here momentarily and show. It's a multi-phase development. Like I mentioned, we view this as a minimum of 5 or 6 phases, depending on the market and how things kind of progress along that nature. But again, really the plan is very specific to what's in the comprehensive plan and what's used for this. And then I've included the 5 bullet points there in terms of what is outlined in the comprehensive plan with is what we have here, which is diverse housing types, mixed density neighborhoods, walkable neighborhoods, efficient growth, and a diverse opportunity for, all the way from workforce housing all the way to, I would anticipate we'll have $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes in this development. Real quick on the overlay districts, not to be redundant from what Ben covered well. We've got the 5 overlay districts, but 2/3 of it will predominantly be that village district. First district I'll kind of go through is the park district. Again, that's about 11% of the total development, 17.3 acres. And that's just designated area that's specific to parks. So there'll be a bunch of residual buffer areas and tangential space that will make up that. We really wanted to lean into what the site gives us itself. So obviously we've got a existing, what used to be the nursery there, that's got some mature trees, and it's got some wetland considerations and things like that. So we want to incorporate the larger development and communities, walking trails and amenities associated with that, leaning into the natural attributes that the site gives us. Yeah, and I think as part of that park district, kind of in that big park area where it literally says park, we kind of view that as being like a central large clubhouse, kind of what you see represented in the picture here. And then we anticipate having a lot of nodes within the development for localized amenities, playgrounds, a bunch of trails. Again, in the actual PUD application, you can see the trails a lot better in some of those exhibits, but those light yellow lines that you see in there, we anticipate, multiple miles, frankly, of walking trails throughout the development. Here's just a few character exhibits, and then I kind of represented that boardwalk, maybe through that wetland area, and then you've got other gathering spaces for the community. Next district is the village district, just to speak specifically on that. Again, that's about 2/3 of the overall site. Ben mentioned we had two. Really what we're trying to do is we want to follow all the ordinances that Lebanon has spent time studying and implementing, and then where needed, but because of the various pockets and the size of the mixed use development, it made sense to do it the way we did it with these overlay districts. But really, we're just copying in this village district exactly what's in R3 standards in the Lebanon UDO. Two exceptions. We've lowered the maximum allowable. R3 allows 4.5 units per acre. We don't need that for this. And then in some of our developments in Whitestown, it's become very popular to have these maintenance-free areas. So you have retirees or empty nesters who want a smaller ranch. And so the current ordinances, we had 1,400 and we lowered that to 1,200 just to allow for some of that. But it's, as you can imagine, with demographics and various other things, we've had a huge demand for the maintenance-free, smaller ranch lifestyle. One thing I really wanted to highlight, and Ben kind of hit on this, we, for reasons I won't get into, I'll let Mr. Shine on the legalities of it, but we'll cover it at the HOA and community level, legislate certain rules on what the CCRs anticipate what we want to do for rental restrictions. So again, those rental restrictions, we are pretty passionate about for sale belongs in for sale and for rent belongs in for rent. There are reasons why people need to rent their homes, or there are reasons why people rent homes. So renters are not bad people by any stretch. However, when we can optimally set these things up, we want for sale and for rent to be designated and separated. So within that village district, that 2/3 of the site is designated against that. For now, I've got 5 bullet points here. No legal entity may own 1 or more unit within the development. No more than 10% of total dwelling units may be rented. No short-term rentals, so there would be a minimum stay of a year or minimum contract length of a year if you did do that. And it must be owner occupied for a year. So that's kind of the biggest thing, is when people are buying these houses, it's with the intention of owning them. And again, life circumstances dictate they may need to rent. But, and then if they do rent, we actually will mandate through the HOA CCRs that they will have to provide a maintenance arrangement with a lawn care company to make sure that these things are maintained well. And these are just a few character exhibits. These are literally houses, although my marketing person may have gone a little crazy with the supplemental landscaping there in the bottom left. But these are actual houses we have in Whitestown that we built. So that's kind of our niche on the Hallmark side, is we are hitting that attainable, I won't use the word affordable because everything is expensive, but attainable price points where we can start in the low threes, but we can build customized homes. So these are actually 3 homes that are in our subdivision in Whitestown, just down the road. So I encourage you to kind of check those out. Quickly, Towns District, again, we're just matching what's in the R5 standards. So it goes a maximum of 10 units per acre. And again, like Ben covered, this is in the northwest corner there, in close proximity to 39, and kind of transitions as with the activity of 39 and a kind of a buffer before you get into the less dense Village District. But otherwise, it pretty well matches. It matches the R5 standards from the ordinances 1 and 1. These are just some character images. These are actually the top left and bottom right are ones we're currently building in another neighboring community. Bottom left is a detached product. And so these are kind of these are the types of units that would potentially be in that district.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Audience, the room is designed for voices to carry. So as you're talking in the back, it's hard to hear the presentation for us and for you guys. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of keeping your voices down if you do need to chat with your neighbor, I appreciate it.
Could you raise the volume up a little bit? We can't hear.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You are speaking now.
Raise that up a little bit.
Yeah. As long as you guys won't laugh too hard if I accidentally bump it, but I'll absolutely get closer. So the Terrace District is the next district, like I said, highlighted in the yellow there. That represents about 10% of the total development of it, and that does allow the 22 units per acre. And again, it's coming straight off of that market district and acting as a transition area buffer to the less dense Village District. The idea here with the character exhibits is kind of do a traditional suburban multifamily type of look with those. Finally, the market district, that represents about 6 acres of the total development, and it's just that road frontage there that we have from 39 that is directly across the street from a similar use. And so we've got a couple of examples of what that could look like. It's really just a neighborhood retail-like setup. And then we've had some early conversations, but it's still early in the planning with kind of a childcare-like facility there, which is what one of the character exhibits has there. So really just kind of, to summarize things a bit here, the goal here is to create a mixes of uses to have a place where you could have everyone from, younger people or just people who are renting in general, to first-time home buyers, to those that could facilitate a growing family, a second move up, to areas where we would have empty nesters and have, part of the development designed to accommodate them. Again, all within one walkable neighborhood where you could stay there. You could have multi-generational families that live within the same community together. And again, it's just in close alignment with what was laid out in the 2025 comprehensive plan. One quick remark on the phasing here. We anticipate starting from the south and then working our way up north. Obviously, a lot of that's dictated by the utilities and then the necessary flow of how this would go. But our goal would be to engage in multiple uses in that first phase and kind of kick off the development. Based on the size and the quantities of what we would be projecting here, obviously I mentioned there's a huge demand, so all this can kind of flex up and down would be to start this thing in planning, and by the time we would actually be able to get engaged, late 27, early 2028, and anticipate this being anywhere from the fastest it would be was like a 5-year all the way to a 7 or 8 year development. So this is our best attempt to kind of lay out a 6-phase development within the larger master plan community.
Can you go back to that screen a minute? Thank you.
So final comment is just leaving the overlay districts here with kind of some of the specifics. We understand that Lebanon is in a transformative phase. Biggest thing we want to echo is we want to design a thoughtful community that works well for the existing community and then, future residents, of which there's a lot of understandable interest and demand in the market. So just want to let everyone know we take that very seriously, and we've worked closely in tandem with the community as we laid out this development. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Any questions from the commission for Scott and his team?
Scott, there may have been a slide early on that kind of went quick, but do you have and I know our zones are not set in stone yet, but a ballpark on number of residential units?
I thought that question would come. No. Yeah, I think in totality in the village district of single family detached, it'll be right around 350 total units. And then we would anticipate in that townhome district being about 120 units. And then we kind of contemplate some around 200 to 250 on the multifamily section.
Other questions from the commission for Scott?
I have a question. How far away from the house is going to be from the sidewalk? And the reason I say that is come up more and more that pickup trucks are longer than they've ever been, and cars are longer, and they get across the sidewalks and people can't walk on them. So you got to move the houses farther back away from the sidewalk, make the backyard smaller. I understand that.
Yeah. Well,
But how do you stop them from blocking the sidewalks?
yeah, we've got a front building setback of 25 feet. So it used to be 20 feet, you would be fine. But now the trucks have gotten big enough where, so we have 25 in the PUD.
I think that's your favorite question these days.
Oh, yeah. It's a pet peeve me, I can tell you, because it's a real nightmare for us.
Other questions from the commission for Scott?
Yes. This involves the towns district. You pretty much, your state right now wants to be your intense single family buyers, first time home buyers. Would it be advantageous to add that HOA from the village, from the other district into that?
Into the town.
So you can do the rental restrictions to it?
Yeah. I'll answer you and then I'll explain, but I'd like to have the flexibility. And part of that is, I'll get too nichey here, but townhomes became a very popular product type for planning staffs. And, you go to a planning conference and it was the biggest thing in the world that they would push that as a use. But what has happened actually is townhomes are similar enough to apartment living that when you're in an interest rate environment like we're currently at, there's like no feasibility for sale townhomes, or it's very difficult. So if you look at any development around the city of Indianapolis, because that's just where we do business, for sale townhomes are causing a bunch of problems for developers, builders, and the communities that they're in just because of that. So ideally, I would like the flexibility to Now, something I talked about with staff is if we do rentals, having specific things like extra parking and some of these other considerations for it. But yeah, I think ultimately what we would like to do is try to have enough flexibility to meet the market where it's at. And part of that too is the way the utilities and the pathways will work to get to that towns district. We're probably 4 or 5 years away.
Right.
And so we just don't have.
The market could change. I understand that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
we're having the Corbett townhomes. They already got their first 3 sets of buildings for sale now from Lennar. So don't know how they're selling yet because they just started, but they're
Yeah.
all for sale.
And
Right
I'm
a half mile down
yeah.
the road from me. This.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that's the case. Yeah, that will absolutely be the primary goal. But yeah, I mean, that's something we can absolutely
Probably
discuss.
somewhat addressed down later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just some flexibility. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not against the idea.
The other question involves the Parks District. Who's going to pay to maintain that?
So that was another one of our first conversations we had with the city. We've actually worked with a town in Hancock County and then in Whitestown, where they loved the idea of receiving that into the town and including that extra land into their parks department. I have not gotten that same reception from the city of Lebanon. So if they would like to, we would absolutely work with them on that. But if you would like for it to be controlled and maintained by the HOA, then absolutely, that's totally fine.
That's where the question of the towns district comes back in there. It's like if there is no HA, the density of the towns district, all of a sudden they get access to this park district without having to pay a dime.
Yeah, we
So-
will have a master HOA where every subdevelopment within the development will pay into that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll pay. They'll be responsible for paying into the larger HOA.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Other questions from the commission?
Scott, I know it's not something that we're deciding tonight, but as you go into that primary plat phase and the development plan phase, could there be consideration of, you mentioned the nursery that was there, lots of existing trees, lots of trees along both the south and along the northwest where the residing current neighbors are. Could there be consideration of maybe a tree preservation area or something along those lines to keep those big trees that are there to create that buffer, to add to the buffer? Hopefully there'll be some extenuating buffers that you'll create with your development, but could we try to save some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we, unrelated to this, have a huge passion for that. So that would absolutely be, but related to it too. I mean, we want to keep that as an amenity that people will really appreciate and like. And then there's some buffering components to that as well. And that's one thing in the ordinances that, or in the PUD that I didn't highlight, but we've basically taken the existing buffering and increased it by a factor of more than 2. And so part of that will include stuff we're going to add, and then it'll be, potentially using some of the existing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else at the commission? All right. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate it. So we will move on to the public hearing component of this docket. So I will go ahead and officially open the public hearing. I'll invite anyone to come to the microphone. Please state for the record your name and address. If you have not signed in, don't worry about it before you speak. If you would just sign after you speak so we have it on record, that would be great. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible, and then also try to refrain from repeating as much as you can. So with that, the public hearing is open. Please feel free to step to the microphone.
Sure, I'd love to.
My name is Valerie Jasper. I reside at 3014 North 25 East here in Lebanon. Having been a participant during the public meetings and smaller focus groups working on the 2025 update of the Boone County Comprehensive Plan, I have a special interest in ensuring that it and the Lebanon Redefined Comprehensive Plan updated 2025 to 2020 or 2045 are truly used as strategic planning documents for the growth of Lebanon and Boone County as a whole. Speaking tonight on behalf of myself and neighboring families who respectfully but firmly request that you deny this request to rezone the subject property from single-family residential to a PUD district. We urge the commission to deny this rezoning request based on several critical points. Number one, conflict of the requirements and intent of the comprehensive plan. The majority of the proposed location for this development is inconsistent with the land use areas as defined in the plan. The plan shows the area remaining zoned to single-family residential. Understanding that growth is inevitable, the agricultural land portion of this development was annexed into the city limits, I believe, in about 2018, without my opposition, with the understanding that planned zoning would be single-family residential. This significant proposed zoning change will negatively impact the existing neighborhood, and it is in direct opposition to the recently revised plan document, which was to be our guide until 2045. Number two, character and compatibility. Introducing high-density multi-use development contradicts the City of Lebanon's comprehensive plan, which mandates that new developments remain sensitive to the density and character of existing surrounding neighborhoods. And let me just state statistics that are coming up here are actually much worse than I calculated. I calculated based on about 500 residential units. I'm seeing this is now going to be 750, it looks like. So number one, the residential plat to the east was intentionally established with the requirement for spacing between residential buildings to be a minimum of 140 feet apart. In total, the neighboring home sites directly abutting this proposed development average 3.6 acres each. The developer's proposal PUD forces an incompatible high-density development directly against our borders. This is not logical growth. It is a direct disruption of an established community. The population density of this proposed development increases to a level 597% higher than the current residential area of Lebanon and 1,072% higher density than the surrounding properties. Approximately 6% of Lebanon's total projected 2030 population of, and I've seen a discrepancy on population of 19.6, but based on that, 6% of Lebanon's total population would reside in this single development. Current city code allows construction work to be done 24/7 on non-residential zoned properties. This property should remain zoned R1 to ensure that when inevitable building begins, the neighbors have a minimal reprieve from the daily disruption of construction noise and light pollution as is currently being experienced in other development areas throughout Lebanon. In addition to the high-density single-family units, the proposal includes 3 to 4 multi-story family units and townhouses which do not fit the character of the surrounding neighborhood homes and would tower over their properties. Number 3, conservation of property values. Although developer states that they anticipate this development will not negatively impact property values throughout the city, this broad comparison overlooks the negative impact of property values for those residencies in direct proximity, some of which are assessed at over $750,000. Number 4, infrastructure and safety strain. As we've talked, 300 North has a 1-lane bridge. The roads in general, excluding 39, are designed for low-density traffic. High-density multi-unit structures at an increased fire risk. Water availability and treatment concerns are still to be addressed. Adding the concentrated volume of a dense PUD will compromise traffic safety and strain utility capacities that have not yet scaled for this density. Number 5, residential growth and development. According to the plan, our comprehensive plan, land use development section 2.12, the establishment of a PUD and design review process was done for development of the LEAP Lebanon Innovation District. The proposed PUD development site is an irresponsible leap outside the bounds of the LEAP district, the State Road 39 redevelopment corridor, and in conflict with the planned site zoning for single-family homes, as all are defined in the comprehensive plan. In addition, the proposal document states that the area is within the transportation overlay district. According to the Boone GIS map, 3 parcels included in this development proposal fall well outside the bounds of that overlay district. Planned unit developments are intended to provide unique community benefits, not to bypass standard zoning laws to maximize developer profits at the expense of existing homeowners. Upholding the R1 zoning is a commitment to the promises made to the families who invested in Lebanon's future. Thank you for your time, your service to our city, and your dedication to protecting our established neighborhoods. We ask that you forward the Northgate Planned Unit Development Rezone proposal to the Common Council with an unfavorable recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Feel free. Yeah. Mayor does not sit on this council. The mayor does not sit on this council.
Oh, okay.
Kelly, our secretary.
I figured that the internet said that the IoT out there would not be able to put it into the. I see you guys hired somebody from, Boone County for this. That's nice. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about.
Can you please state the name, your
I'm
name for the
sorry.
record, please?
My name is Renee, last name is Reese, R-U-I-Z, and I'm here today to talk about something I've been working on that's called the Paul Foundation. I found out about a week ago that my grandson is being displaced. So the town bought the apartments that he lives in. He's only 4, and he's got a little sister that's breastfeeding still. She's not my grandchild, but he is. Anyway, I love them both. So my problem is that you guys aren't voting on this till November. So I don't understand why they're getting kicked out of their homes.
Just to clarify, so the public hearing is on docket 26-22, which is directly related to the Braun property development property.
Yeah, I think, but this is an emergency. Like he's going to be homeless. So
Doesn't have anything to do with our council.
you just
Unfortunately,
can't put it into the minutes because he's,
this public hearing is for specifically that project.
okay, well, I will specifically then just have to apologize.
Thank you. Other comments? And again, reference to docket 26-22. Thank you.
I believe I have one of those. My name's Stan Skelton. I live on 300 North. My property is probably more affected by this than anybody else's because it's on 2 sides of my property. I've been involved in a lot of these projects in my lifetime. And this one is the same as the rest of them. I live on a road now that isn't wide enough for a dump truck and a car to pass. You have to get off the road now, a single road. I've got a single lane bridge I can see from my house. And I hear this project, I don't see anything there about who is going to make these improvements, when we're going to do this. This road is within 50 feet of our wells. The 3 homes by me, our wells are in our front yard. We're within 50 feet of that road, which will have to be widened, guys. There's no way you can bring that driveway down there and not do something with this road. And our wells are right there. Now, my concern is the wells and the traffic. I mean, we're talking about putting 2,000 automobiles or 1,000 automobiles back here into a development that half of them is probably going to have to use my road. And they're going to come right beside my property to get to this road. So I think a little planning ahead. What are we going to do with this road? Who is going to pay for this? Who is going to widen this bridge? You're going to have to take a house out to widen this one-lane bridge. There's a house right there that is going to have to go, for sure. And I want us to be guaranteed access to city water if they destroy our wells or if they do this project, because our wells will not survive within 15, 20 feet of a county road. Well, it won't be a county road anymore. It's going to be like a 4-lane. And that's my big concern, guys, is I think they need to come up with something here to handle the traffic before. Right now, we've got dump trucks running up and down there to all these developments. I mean, it's a steady stream. And it's a hazard. You have to get off the road. There's not enough room on the road for you in a dump truck. So what we need to see with these big plans is, let's get started on this bridge. Let's get something going with this road. Who's going to do this? When are we going to do it? And who's going to take care of our wells, which I worked in construction for many years. I'm 83 years old. There's a high line run along beside that road. And I'm going to tell you, I've moved many of them in my lifetime, and it's a very costly operation. That's going to have to move over into my front yard. I've done it. I know the business. So let's get some plans to go with this instead of just, let's bring all these houses in here and bring all these people. Let's get some plans to protect the people. There's people here who've been there 40 years. They've invested their life savings and everything else in these properties. Let's protect the people that's here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other public comment?
My name is Steve Winning. I live at 3265 North 25 East. And I just want to share a few little comments. I'm not directly abutting it, but I'm within the line sight just across the road from this development. One of the things I just want to mention ahead of time that you probably are already aware of is you're in a place that most towns would envy today. You have Lilly, a major global company that's coming to Lebanon with creating a major center for their corporation. When you look at what has happened to Zionsville and Fishers and Carmel over the years, I'm 64 years old, so I remember when Zionsville was a little hamlet, not much in the way of schools. They've done planning to develop their community into a first-rate community with top-rate schools. Again, you may not realize it, but in a sense, you're founding fathers of what Lebanon will become. What you plan here will decide the character of what Lebanon will be. This place is about to explode. So what I'm going to try to do is Valerie made up some very good points. I will scratch all those from my talk here. I'm going to just try to pick out my top three and hopefully I can get it through quickly. So first off, I want to say I do not object to development. When Lilly came in, we knew the character was going to change. I love my rural area. I can't preserve that, but I do want some thoughtful planning ongoing on what kind of housing we have in the future. My concerns are not with housing itself, it's with the concentration of the housing. The first thing is, when you are looking at development, we are going to be getting, it's true, a lot of people in here. We're going to have Lilly executives, we're going to have managers, we're going to have lab technicians, we're going to have high-level people. When you set up a housing development, for people to want to move into it, it's not just the homes that are there, it is also what they see around them. You never see a high-level development with high-intensity power lines going overhead. You don't see it in the midst of apartment buildings or two-story townhouses. You see it with other single-family dwellings. So what I would like, as you are planning and envisioning what Lebanon will become, is to think about how all this fits together. And this area was kind of partitioned out for single-family dwellings. What kind of single-family dwellings do you envision for that? Second, and this one has not been mentioned at all, is you look at the number of homes just in this one development. I'm not even counting the 3 on the other side of Elm Swamp Road that are coming in, but it's like we just passed the bond issue on our schools. I don't know how much everyone is planning with the schools, but my sister was in an area that had explosive growth. And her children, through elementary school, the majority of the time they had first-year teachers and their classrooms were trailers on a makeshift parking lot because the number of residents coming in could not keep up with the schools. Lebanon schools are in a very good position to, they've since Superintendent Taylor forward, I think the school district has just been fantastic here, and I think it can become a premier school. But you have to let it grow ahead of all these people coming in so you don't diminish the value of the school, because once you get a bad reputation, again, people take their families where there are good schools. I think we've got good schools. I want to keep them that way. It also affects my property values that, I think that's a good thing. And then my third point is, besides schools, I think this was touched upon a little bit, but we have an infrastructure issue here. And it's not just so much that, we need more lanes and stuff like that. It's, who is going to pay for it? We're asking the county, since they control the bridge and the road, to pay for that. So that's the Boone County taxpayers that are paying for that. I don't know if there's, in this plan, if you are going to have impact fees from the development to help offset these, but I would suggest that you do, because these are some significant expenditures. And, just as you're looking at their plan, since there's going to be a major development on 39, perhaps the solution is to have a major exit with lights or a traffic circle or whatever you want. I don't want to get too caramel on us, but, something there where that is the major inflow and outflow for this development, so it doesn't impact a road that can't handle it. Just in closing, Lebanon is growing. Any property is going to be developed at a profitable margin because people are going to be coming here wanting to buy homes. So whether it's a planned unit development or single family housing, developers will be making money either way they go. But I just want to emphasize, please be the visionaries and think of how you want this community to develop and what you want it to look like. We have examples of lots of communities that have developed around us with arts districts and parks and things like that, but please figure out what you want Lebanon to become in the future. And please take into account the adjoining property owners. Make sure you have good buffer zones, save the trees, don't destroy people's wells. You guys are the experts at that. I trust you that you can come up with a plan that will satisfy those type things. So I think I've blown through my 3 points. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I'm Marilyn Neese. Our address is 3775 North, 25 East. And to further state what Steve said, I have not seen plans for access into this development. We have a farm field, which is next to the Brom development. We are not selling, again, going to take farmland from us. Are they going to take part of our property in order to build roads to get into their development? I have not seen an answer to that question.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional public comment? Seeing no movement towards the microphone, I will go ahead and close the public hearing portion. So the public hearing on docket 26-22 has been officially opened and closed. And with that, Ben, do you have any comments?
Yeah, first maybe just ask if there's any questions from the Plan Commission specific to comments that were made. I've got a couple of points that I wanted to touch on, but
Yeah, I had three things that I was going to ask you or the developer. One is traffic studies. Can you maybe Kevin could also go into what goes into that, who's all a part of that, where you kind of touched on earlier, where does that come into play in the process? The second thing that was brought up was impact fees. Talk a little bit about what those are and kind of what those are used for. And then the construction times. It was brought up about 24-hour construction, and I think that may be a little challenging considering the distance between residential units and things. It's much different than Meta and Lily, where there's nobody living exactly right next door to where some of these are. But so those are my 3 points that I was hoping somebody could touch on.
Maybe address those and see if that.
yeah, so
up
first of
more.
all, obviously there's a lot of concerns about traffic. And I touched on it briefly during my presentation, but maybe to go in a little bit more in depth. As part of a development of this size, we'll require them to do a traffic study that really looks at the number of trips that might potentially be generated by that development. And it looks at models to show which directions they go, at what times a day, what are the peak hours, all that good stuff. And then it looks at, and with direction from the city engineer, what are the intersections close by that development? How are they going to be impacted by that traffic when it gets added to the base level traffic that's already there? So we have models that show what our existing traffic patterns are like in the city, with the whole city's been modeled. So we basically overlay this new traffic on top of that and say, okay, at State Road 39 and County Road 300 North, X, Y, Z is going to happen to that intersection. And here are the proposals or proposed improvements that will fix, quote unquote, fix that issue. And so that's really what it does, is it looks at each of the road networks around it. It looks at the potential impacts of that additional traffic and says, hey, here's what's going to need to be done in order to accommodate that traffic and make sure we don't have any issues on roadways or a lot of times at intersections where you really see the bottlenecks. So that's done as part of the next phase of this, which would be the primary platting and development plan. When they start really nailing down how many lots it's going to be, they start doing all their drainage plans. These concepts may totally change once you start figuring out what drainage is required, and some lot numbers may change and things like that. So once we get more detailed information about how many lots and the types of units are in there, then they can do that traffic study for us. And it's certainly going to say that County Road 300 North is not sufficient as it exists today. That's not a mystery. And so we'll have to look at what improvements are necessary on County Road 300 North in order to accommodate that additional traffic, and figure out the best solution to do that project. When we said that we'll have to work with the county, what I didn't intend to say, or I don't think I did, but I didn't intend to mean that the county would pay for it. The development pays for development. And it can be done in a number of different ways. One of them is impact fees. So we have a road impact fee in the city of Lebanon. It's actually in the process of getting updated right now. It's due for an update. Each new residential unit will pay an impact fee. Actually, commercial does too, based on the additional traffic that use creates. So, for example, if we know County Road 300 North needs improvements, it's possible that we can require the developer to improve the road, and then we'll just basically credit that cost off of their impact fees. It's probably not going to be the same number. Most likely that road improvement is going to be more costly. So the other thing that could be done is, because we have a commercial district and also a higher density multifamily district, those are all eligible for tax increment financing. It's possible we could leverage that create and use some of the property tax increment off that to also go towards those improvements. So we are not intending for existing taxpayers or county taxpayers to pay for the improvements necessary. We're really looking to figure out how that development would pay for those improvements to be necessary.
We hear a lot, just some of the things with other developments that the city is putting the cart before the horse when it comes to roads and things. Would it be safe to say that the improvements to 300 and any necessary improvements to 39 would take place before and or during the construction of the development? It's not something that would come after the fact.
That's correct. We'd be looking to try to plan that as part of the development. And one thing, again, we haven't determined the feasibility of improvements on County Road 300 North. We don't know exactly where wells are located or what right-of-way would be necessary. So that's something that would have to still be evaluated, look at the route studies and things like that that are necessary and figure out what's possible.
Real quick, Ben, just because, guys, there were questions asked during public testimony, and we've got some of the answers coming out here, and this room really does carry voices. It's hard for people in the front to hear. If we could listen to the speakers, that would be great, please.
So one thing, what they're showing here now, there's a question about access, and I'll go back. And again, this is all highly conceptual. So, we still have to figure out what can be done with County Road 300 North. If we determine that it's not feasible to make the necessary improvements, we may have to change how the access is provided, and maybe access off of 300 North isn't feasible at the current time. Until we can figure out how that gets done. So yeah, we aren't going to say, hey, we'll figure this out when we get to it. We're going to let them access County Road 300 North and maybe it gets fixed later. We can't provide access on 300 North based on its current condition. It just won't work. And so that's what we'll need to figure out once the zoning gets in place and we can start getting into those further detailed construction items.
Off of that, what you're saying about the potential that was referenced.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Sometimes treated separately.
it's essentially a single lane. Yeah, I'm thinking just the entire road corridor, including the bridge. It is most certainly not adequate. It's basically a single lane bridge. So that's part of that entire road corridor. It's going to have to be a full 2-lane width. Don't know what that entails yet. I'm not an engineer, and we'll have to get some technical people involved to figure out how that gets done. But absolutely, the bridge is part of that conversation as well.
Thank you. I assume that, but I wanted to be sure we clarified that.
For sure.
Okay.
I would also add that it's a small structure now, and I know that's nuance, but when something is legally a bridge, it is the county's bridge. This is not a bridge. This is just a small structure. And so it's still the county's responsibility now because it's in the county. But if this were annexed, it would become a city small structure. With all that being said, it just adds nuance to what is required when it is a bridge versus a small structure.
Good clarification. Yep. Okay.
And Ben, also just kind of to point, again, kind of getting back to, do we do this or do we do that first? I mean, realistically, if you look at the whole picture, in my experience and what I've seen, there's got to be a little bit of confidence built in each other between the developer and the city and the city and the developer, right? So as you talk about, are we going to invest substantially into traffic studies and those sorts of things, there has to be a level of confidence that a project could make sense. So that's why you may see something like a PUD come onto a commission's docket prior to a traffic study being done, those sorts of things. If there's not a willingness or a kind of that give and take of, hey, does this even kind of make sense to go into additional cost? Because a traffic study is very costly, correct?
Yeah, I think that's kind of why, and this is all set up in state statute as well. All these processes are not just City of Lebanon processes. These are all state processes for plan unit developments, rezones, et cetera. So really you start at that high level. And like you said, it really gives some confidence to the developer that they're going to be able to do what it is they propose to do before they start making those very sizable investments in traffic studies, civil design, platting, et cetera. So that's why you start with the zoning and then when you drill down into the details, that's when you really, there's an investment that needs to be made on the private developer's part to really start looking at some of those additional things. They've probably already done some due diligence, I'm sure, on this site, but there's more due diligence needs to be done as they start getting into further design. So that's why the process kind of starts at, like I said, the 10,000 foot level. You get the zoning in place. They got the confidence they're going to be able to move forward with a feasible project. They start making those investments, and then we start figuring out exactly what needs to be done. And this is all before they move forward. This is all before the Planning Commission does an additional review. Again, as I mentioned, the primary platting and all those other things, they come back to the Planning Commission for review again another time. So this is not the last time that there will be a public hearing related to this project. We'll get further details at that point when we get to the platting stages of what's going to be necessary to fix County Road 300 North. I certainly would not want to go forward with approval on County Road 300 North, or on the primary platting for this development until we have a pretty good idea what the direction is going to be on some of those additional items.
And just so the public knows as well, those comments that were made with, our wells are located in these specific locations, those are important comments to be made at these different levels. So it's not that they're not being heard, not being addressed. If a vote happens in one direction or another, it's simply at this point in time that was heard and may be investigated in a different point in time, if that makes sense. So that was just my comment on that.
Hey, Ben, what about the state of Indiana on 39? That's a disaster.
Yeah, they're certainly going to dictate, and they're going to ask for the same things we do. They're going to want to see a traffic study. Obviously, there's an entrance proposed, at least one entrance proposed on State Road 39. They're going to want to see that. They're going to demand the traffic study also to say, hey, we need to see these numbers. We need to figure out what improvements are going to be necessary on State Road 39 to accommodate this development, and they're going to require the developer to make those improvements as well. But they will dictate the exact improvements that are necessary on State Road 39 because they've got jurisdiction over that roadway. But that will certainly be part of the process as well.
I would say that's a major thing to it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we certainly understand that traffic patterns are changing on the north side. The new interchange that's going to open in the next 6 to 9 months, it's going to also change traffic patterns on the north side. So we're going to be continuing to evaluate this area to see how traffic changes, and certainly also then incorporate what we think might be the potential traffic for this development, and figure out, as a transportation network, we're really looking at the entire network on this north side. There's already a significant project that's under design west of State Road 39 on 300 North to accommodate some of the traffic that's expected from the interchange and from other developments. So this whole transportation network is going to have to be evaluated and determine what's necessary in order to accommodate what's happening on the north side.
And there's another area that I would like to hear you address, if you wouldn't mind. Prior to an item appearing on a docket for our agenda, your staff does extensive legwork reviewing things that have come to your attention prior to it ever making an agenda for us to review as a commission on the docket. And yet tonight there were some comments made about this particular docket item being in conflict with the comprehensive plan. Well, part of the checks and balances your staff does is to make sure things are aligned. So that creates a conflict in my brain I would like to hear you address, if you wouldn't mind. I know there are quite a few items on this paper, but maybe in general you could help us with that.
So I will zoom in now on this map. And so I had mentioned there are two use classifications, future land use classifications are on this parcel. And obviously this is not to scale by any means, really just what's contemplated at this intersection on this area. The yellow is single family residential. The pink that's down in the southwest corner is mixed use. So mixed use is defined as a mix of both non-residential and residential uses, contemplates typically higher density residential uses. So what I had suggested in my presentation is that it is complementary. It does meet the comprehensive plan designation for this area, which is showing this as both a mixed use and a single family residential future land use designation, which is what they're proposing, is both mixed use and single family residential. With the majority being single family residential, as you saw in there, it's probably about 2/3 of it that is single family residential.
So it is aligned with our comprehensive plan,
In our determination, it is aligned with the future land use designations on this parcel, and a number of different items about having a variety of housing types to match what market demands. Not everybody wants a single family. A lot of people do want a single family detached home, but not everybody does. So where you have larger comprehensive projects like this, particularly in this case where you're on a major thoroughfare, it's helpful to, when you're looking at mixed use and something like this, when you're on a major thoroughfare with a high traffic area, put some more dense uses there and actually use the use kind of as a buffer from the major roads as you get into the lower density, as you get further to the north and east on this parcel. That's really how we looked at this, is including the mixed use down at the southwest corner, the higher density residential units, residential uses on the west, on the State Road 39 corridor, and then getting less dense as you go further east.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If you could further clarify too, so we redid the comprehensive plan from a city perspective. When was that?
This was 2 years ago, give or take.
24, 25.
Yeah.
And so is that a document that's intended to, be up on the shelf and doesn't move for the next 20 years? Or what is the intent of that?
This is a guide. This is a decision-making guide. It's not law. It's something we use as a guide as we are providing direction to applicants. Is what the Plan Commission uses as a guide to make recommendations, which is why it's one of those 5 criteria to look at. What does the comprehensive plan say about this? That doesn't mean that any of this is set in stone. The legislative body, the council, could say, you know what, we think that this needs to be something totally different than what's on the comprehensive plan based on how the market's changed over the years. Obviously, Lebanon's changing very rapidly right now. We've kind of joked in the office, usually rapidly growing communities change their comprehensive plan usually between 5 and 10 years. We may have to be looking every 5 years at making modifications, just how things are changing. Maybe there's some things that we projected that are not playing out the way we thought, or we're seeing demand and other things that we just need to go back and look. But it's intended to be a guide, and it's intended to be something that's, the term that planners use is a living document. So it's something that as the community grows and changes, the comprehensive plan is intended to grow and change with the community based on, obviously, the council, who's the legislative body, and their decision making.
So in those documents, if you're looking at, I'll just use the word lens, right? So if you're looking at like a 20-year lens, you're really trying to project forward, hey, in 20 years, what could this thing look like, right? So it's not saying, hey, 20 years from now, we'll reevaluate and change things. It's literally over the next 20 years, this is where we could see things, almost looking at it through that lens of 20 years forward.
Yeah, and actually ours is only a 10-year plan. We didn't even think, we weren't even comfortable projecting 20 years. I believe the county does a 20-year time horizon, but ours was, we really asked our committee to look at what we think might happen in 10 years, knowing full well that even our best guesses were probably not going to be right over the next 10 years. So we really weren't comfortable going out any further than that, just the dynamics in this area, in this market, and just knowing things are going to be constantly changing and we have to adapt to those things.
Other questions from the commission?
Yep, just a couple. It's just not sure if everybody knew this. When we annexed things into the city in the first place, this property was annexed in, it's standard that anything that's annexed in is usually put in single-family residential R1, at least now the way that things are set now. It's an R1. So that's just the way it was set in. And from that point on, it's the developers in the city's plan to do something between single-family residential all the way down to mixed-use density or a PUD or something like this, depending on how the market is and everything else that we've already explained. I don't think this is a high density, in my opinion. The single-family part of this is what, 60+%? And it's really a hybrid between an R2 and an R3, because it's pretty much like where I live out in Auburn Meadows. It's the same size lots. You've got over 1/4 of an acre, almost 1/3 of an acre. And that's the majority of that 60% of the people that live there. It's not high density. Just to give perspective, if anybody wants to go drive around town and see what kind of housing lot sizes we're talking about, that would probably be a good one to go to. So, and now we have the setbacks are Are they larger than 25 feet or are they 25 feet?
So the garage setback is 25, the front setback is 25 feet.
And how about
Again, they're following
And
our,
how
they're
about
following
the
our ordinance.
boundaries, around the boundaries? Is that 25 feet plus all the landscaping now?
Yeah, I think as Scott had talked about, they're looking to actually increase the size of buffers around, and certainly
Or
those
what we're
details.
asking.
Yeah, those details will come into play much more in the primary plat. You know, in some places it may make sense to do privacy fences just to really delineate between this project and some of those neighbors. Those are details we'll certainly get into to make sure that there's proper protections for the people out there. Obviously, drainage is a huge factor on how this thing ends up getting laid out that we still really need to get figured out. But just kind of go back and reemphasize your comment. When the way the ordinance is set up, if you do an annexation like this was 6 or 7 years ago, if there's not some sort of development proposed or a concept, it just comes in under a default R1 zoning classification. I guess at that time it was probably SF1. But the intention always is at some point in the future, there will be a development proposed and a hearing like this would happen where we consider the proposed development and the council considers a proposed development.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
And can you address work hours on residential construction?
Yeah, I forgot, I made a note of that. So in residential districts, it's restricted to daytime hours. It's just as simple as that. Yeah, it's only if you're in a non-residential district where there is a possibility that it could even be nighttime construction.
And just so a PUD in this setting would be considered a residential district, or its location proximal to residential district.
In both cases, yeah.
Right.
So and I don't know that they would actually intend to do any construction work at night anyway. That's
Right.
pretty atypical in a residential development anyway. But no, they would not be permitted to do nighttime construction in this development.
Additional questions, comments from the commission?
Comments, but can there be questions or any rebuttal from?
No, thank you. You're welcome to talk to staff during hours. Thank you. So with that, the commission, I would entertain any motions in regards to docket 26-22.
I'll make a motion to forward the Northgate Plan Unit Development Rezone Ordinance to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation.
So we have a motion to forward with favorable recommendation. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry unanimously. So that was the only docket item we had on our agenda this evening. So I believe that brings us to adjournment, and I would entertain any motions. Got a motion to adjourn? And a second. All those in favor, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. We will see you at the next regularly scheduled meeting.